Oh, this is Alex. And I'm coming right off the previous rant where I was talking about evidence-based reasoning. And now I'm going to talk about credibility. If you listened through all the way to the end of my other video, if so, I congratulate you. If not, you can probably just skip near the end and watch it, and there'll be a link to it. My father used my lack of experience, lack of a formal lack of a degree, basically, and his own experience and degree and productivity and slash wealth generation as a way to discredit me and to give himself more credit than he probably should have. In our conversation, he asked me if I thought that I know everything or that I know or that I think that I know a lot. And I quite plainly admitted, rather, it was kind of an interesting deflection. I thought it was pretty clever. I said, I think that both of us think that we know more than we do. Which, oh, man. First off, if somebody ever says that you think that you know it all, saying that will instantly, that instantly levels the playing field. You're saying, yeah, I don't know everything, but let's be fair, you don't either. So, let's have a discussion based on what we do know, and what we don't know we can look up and find out together. Or at least that's how it should go. You know, I want to give credit to his ideas. I want his arguments to be good. The better that his arguments are, the more challenged that I am. The more challenged that I am, the more research that I do. The more research that I do, the more that I learn, the better prepared I am for a future argument. So, really, I did in fact thank him for, at least early in the conversation, um, providing me with a couple of challenging pieces. But only a couple. Only a couple. He spent most of the time trying to simply discredit my arguments by saying that I am young and inexperienced and haven't had a real job, and that I haven't had to take care of a family, even though I am divorced and had to work 40 hours a week for my wife to fetter away all of my money. Though, of course, to be fair, things were bad on both of our ends. That was just a terrible relationship. Continuing on. My father works for a GPS company, specifically Trimble. I don't think that it matters. And he works doing software development and implementation. Well, because of this, he gets to travel a lot. Okay, well, that's cool. He goes to a lot of countries. He's been to, I'd say, probably at least half of the countries that exist. He's been to the UK. He's been to Ireland, I believe. He's been definitely to Italy, US. I think maybe Canada, Bermuda, Antigua, Jamaica. Ooh, I want to make you. The Bahamas. Come on, pretty mama. Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, India, China, New Zealand, Australia, Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa. I mean, and the list continues. The list goes on. He's been to a lot of places, which some of them only for a short period of time, maybe a week or two. Others he spent possibly even months locations. So he has been he is well traveled. I will say, though oftentimes he's admitted that his experience didn't really get much outside of a land administration office or something like that. My father has an undergraduate in computer science and a master's in computer science. He earned his bachelor at 2001, 2000, something right in that vicinity. And then he earned his master's in 2015. So he's got a degree. He is educated in computers. That's what he knows. He knows databases. He knows programming languages. He knows a lot of stuff. He even knows a little bit of project management and how to train people and stuff. And he's good at his job, and his job is a good job to have. He does a lot of good in the world. I perfectly agree with him on that. He says that he's created a lot of wealth, and that until you create the level of wealth that he has, that you can't understand that you can't understand basically his conservatism. And I made the argument where I said, yeah, I'd be okay paying more taxes for better social benefits. He's like, well, I can go to the doctor anytime that I want. So, I mean, why would I want to pay the government to do that? Because I can already do that. Because I make a bunch of money. And I'm like, yeah, but not everybody else makes that much money. He's like, well, if people don't like the jobs they have, they can always move to another company. Can they? Can they? And I made the comment that there was only so much room at the top. And so there is a limit to the number of people. And he said, no, there's not. That's a total dirty lie. Just make a niche and then make room for yourself at the top. Grow the pie. And that's all well and good. And there are people who do that. But I don't think that literally everyone can do that. I don't think that everyone can be a millionaire CEO. It's not, if everyone was a millionaire CEO, I would, that's an excellent question. What would the world be like? Could a world even exist? Could such a place even exist? If everyone was a millionaire, then wouldn't nobody be? Wouldn't the spending power be so reduced by inflation that, in fact, everybody who's at the top would now be at the bottom, and the people who now were at the top are still at the top, but they've made the top even higher? When you bring his statement to the logical conclusion, it's kind of ridiculous. But essentially, he said that I am not a credible source, that I have no credibility and therefore should not be listened to, that I haven't done enough yet in life to be considered a credible source. This from a man lecturing me about economics when I'm pretty sure the last time that he took a class in economics was over a decade ago. He may say, oh, well, I heard about it all the time from your mother, because my mother was a history professor. Let me clarify that. My mother was an American history professor who got her master's degree in studying anti-Christian World War II propaganda in Russia. Yeah. Yeah. A fascinating read, her thesis. But the important thing is this definition of credibility. Yes, my father has some credentials, but let's take a look simply at the definition of credibility. Noun, the quality of being trusted and believed in. 2, the quality of being convincing or believable. Synonyms, trustworthiness, reliability, dependability, and plausibility, believability, tenability, probability, feasibility, likelihood, and credence. So there's because I'm not experienced enough. I haven't generated enough wealth. I'm not a credible source. And let me just say, as somebody who is only 23, doesn't have a degree, but is intensely studying every day, I am learning things every day about politics, religion, economics. Study. I think it's the difference between me and him. I immerse myself in knowledge, both scientific and political and economic and social. And I mean, if there is an issue, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look at both sides of the issue. I'm going to look at numbers and statistics. I'm going to look at different interpretations of those numbers so that I can come to my own conclusion, that I can come to an informed decision. I find people who are experts on the subject, not necessarily authorities. Having an authority on a subject is dangerous. But for example, in my discussion with my father, he started to he brought up a couple of points about apologetics. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You probably don't even know who you're quoting, who you're referencing, how not credible the sources that you're using. He was quoting at our church, while it didn't necessarily take a lot of fundamentalist positions. At one point, they did teach fundamentalist creationist apologetics. And these were the kinds of arguments that he was making about, and it's such a strange concept to him. It must be what being credible is, because he takes his experience and a few anecdotes and his belief in both Christianity and capitalism. He did tell me that he believes in capitalism and meritocracy, and that those systems work, and that he firmly believes in them. And I said, well, I believe that there are some, pardon the pun, merits to those systems, but which me steel manning, and I actually gave a few examples during our conversation, which is what I was taught to do. I was taught, steel man your opponent, give them an extra leg to stand on, and then kick it out from underneath them. Don't straw man somebody, because when you straw man somebody, then it's not even a challenge. It's misleading and deceptive. But when you steel man somebody, when you prop them up, when you say, yes, you've got a point, let me help you with that point, and then let me show you the other side. He would completely reject that I even admitted to accepting any points of his. I did. I even told him, I said, yeah, you know what? It is, when we were specifically talking about universal basic income, and he mentioned that it could be that people will work less, or people will simply feed on society. And I said, yeah, actually, it's quite possible that there is a group that will do that. There's also a group that wants to do things that are productive and advance society, and they can't, because it doesn't pay enough money or it doesn't pay enough money, or it doesn't pay regularly enough, that they can't do it, because they've got to work a 40-hour-a-week job at Chipotle to pay the bills. And I think that my dad is too old. And while he's familiar with technology, he's quite skilled when it comes to cyber networks and even some cybersecurity stuff, that he I don't think that he's a very credible source. When I think about what sites, where does my dad get his news from? Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, Fox News. My own Twitter feed, where I get a lot of my articles. I follow Fox News, the BBC, the Associated Press, CNN, and it's like among other news sources. And the difference is that I'm interested, so I learn, and I have more information. Anything that he had, any point that he had, I had a counterpoint for. And in many cases, I could even cite what I was referring to. Whether it be scripturally, there was one time where I quoted a proper scripture and got the book wrong, the statement about not allowing a witch to live was in the New Testament, when in fact it was in Exodus. My mistake. You know what? It's okay. They do talk about witchcraft in the New Testament. And had I remembered at the time that it was in Matthew, I probably could have gotten toward a metaphorical point in the argument. I won't even call it a debate, because it wasn't a debate. There was no respect, there was no evidence, there was no reason, there was no logic, there was definitely no moderation. I mean, he said that I kept interrupting him, which I did, but only to point out that almost immediately after he began to speak, that he was already basing his logic, his arguments on fallacies, or it's like he would start to strawman atheism, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Atheism isn't the positive, confirmation that there is no God. Such a claim cannot be positively or negatively verified. Or at least at the moment, we cannot prove or disprove the existence of a God. Now, if we were able to somehow comprise the entire body of knowledge in the universe and found out that there was no, and couldn't find a God, we still wouldn't be able to reasonably confirm or deny. Under the logic, under the assumption that God is an extra-dimensional being, or a hyperdimensional being, in which case he would be able to exist on higher planes of existence that we would have very little or no way of interacting with. And so but when you say that atheists believe that 100% there is no God, of course I'm going to correct you right away, too. I'm not going to let you wait and give a straw man argument to against atheism, because you know it went there. You know that Hitler came up. You know that it had to happen. You know that Mao had to come up, that Stalin had to come up. You know that it just had to. And so I said, when, as an atheist, you have to reevaluate all of your beliefs. You have to figure out why you believe the things that you believe. Because God said so is an inadequate answer. Because you don't believe in God. So, and he said, oh, that's a very good point. And he tried a thought experiment where he basically was a theoretical atheist, and he said, well, there's no God watching me all the time. What if I mean, what if I just wanted to go? I'm not worried about hell, eternal punishment. If I can get away, if I think that I can get away with it, why wouldn't I perform evil acts, quote unquote? What I mean, and I had to go. Oh, this was such a huge tangent for us. It was. I mean, I was talking about how there are people who think like that, but it's a small group of people. I said, you can't say that that'll be everyone. That's not me. There are social and societal pressures, punishment from the government, the desire to help people around you, the compassion for your neighbors and for other human beings. Just because you're not a Christian doesn't mean that you don't have those feelings. It's a very human feeling to have. And I think that atheism, in a sense, frees you from necessarily having to this to kind of frees you from the necessity to pretend that you necessarily care about something. Now, because it's not unchristian like. If I were, for example, to say that I can make an incredibly politically incorrect statement, which Christians do all the time. Yes, I understand. But I could say without probably without any negative feelings that the attack in Turkey where 54 people died, it was an attack by Islamic extremists, probably by a child who may or may not have been aware what was going on. Saying, one, that was an incredible act of evil, and two, that it wasn't necessarily unexpected because of the extremely divisive nature of Islamic religion. Now, I could get some backlash for that. Honestly, I don't care. If I'm going to hell, I'm already destined to go there. Theoretically. I was a Christian at one point. Some would say I'm always a Christian. But when it comes to credibility, we can see that my dad is not making himself a very credible source. I bring up that a lot of his arguments are coming from apologists like Kent Hovind and Ham and William Lane Craig. Because though our church didn't teach some of the fundamentalist stuff, it did teach a lot of the creationist stuff. And those sort of arguments were starting to come up. And I was like, whoa, you're starting to quote some people. And I mentioned these names. And he's like, I have no idea who you're talking about. And I say, well, I explain they're Christian apologists. Their work gets distributed to churches. Most of it is incredibly unscientific, is not based in any sort of fact or evidence, and is full of both logical fallacies and internal errors. In talking about this, he in the mention of Hitler, I said, well, yeah, you may get a Hitler, even though that was social Darwinism to achieve a political end. It wasn't really evolution or atheism that did it. I mean, Hitler was a fucking Catholic. I mean, can you really blame the Holocaust on atheism? When the person who perpetrated such an act was Catholic, and the Catholic Church turned the other way while he did it. They were Jews and gypsies. aka witches and sorcerers. um, and I'll let you guess which one is which. Oh, there were probably some pigs in there too, and those might have been either or. You know, it was Europe in the 1940s, 1930s, 1950s, everywhere kind of did general range. But my dad just didn't seem to understand. And of course I said atheism also produces excellent people like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. I mean, even the guys at the Bible Reloaded, Jake and Hugo. There are a lot of good people who are atheists. And my dad was like, "Who? Who's Richard Dawkins? What?" I'm like, "Wait, you've never heard of Richard Dawkins? The blind watchmaker? I mean, you never heard of any of his books or anything like that? One of the new, given the moniker, one of the horsemen of new atheism." Like, "Oh, okay, whatever, I don't care." And I was like, "Well, I am drawing my credibility from experts." And that's really what it comes down to, is that I draw my credibility from experts because I'm constantly reading and I retain the information. Maybe not all of it. Maybe some of it gets a little bit corrupted. I might misquote somebody, maybe say something that I thought Dawkins said, but in fact it was Lawrence Krauss or something like that. But the point is that I'm quoting an expert in their field. I'm quoting Richard Dawkins, who's an expert evolutionary biologist. Lawrence Krauss, theoretical physicist. When my dad made the suggestion that when I said that the idea of the universe coming into existence, forming over billions of years, that the Earth forming, and then abiogenesis occurring, and then evolution to get to where we are today, to see all this magnificent stuff, which counter to his comment that you can see the evidence all around you for God, he merely laughed, saying that it was silly for me to believe that the universe could just come into existence. And I said, well, actually, there's some mathematical models that show that, in fact, the universe could have just come into existence. And he said, oh, next year there'll be another model saying that it's physically impossible that it couldn't. And then the next year after that, they'll say that it could. And then they'll just keep saying different things. And I was like, but the difference between you and me is that I accept new information. Change my mind. And I gave him the opportunity. I gave him the opportunity to show me anything credible, any one piece of evidence showing the historicity of the Bible, and he could not do it. Because apparently, when you learn what you want to learn about a subject, it's okay to just dump all of it so that when it comes up in a conversation with somebody else, you can have absolutely no credibility. As was the case here. I thought that, I was relying on other people's credibility. Yes, because I have not done a lot of research myself yet. I'm not in a position where I can. I'm not in school at the moment, though I would absolutely love to be. And sure, I don't have a degree, but I have taken an economics class in the last decade. I have taken a theology class in the last decade. I mean, even sooner than that, actually, I've taken economics and theology classes, including the Bible as literary history, as early as 5 years ago. Sorry, as late as 5 years ago. I have taken economics class and more theology classes since then, and have continued to do a great amount of studying. And so, when he said that I was not credible, it made me wonder, am I not a credible source? Maybe not individually, but I use evidence and back up my and I present evidence for any claim. It's like for claims that I make. Maybe not necessarily in a video like this where it's mostly about me ranting about a concept rather than trying to prove or disprove something or to pick a side on an issue. But this particular issue made me question. Now, is my dad a nice guy? Yeah. But does he know what he's talking about when it comes to economics, socio-political structures, the way the socioeconomic climate of America? I don't think so. I think that I'm more well-read than him on this one. And I mean, I could give tons of examples. People who are well-educated, some of my friends even, who are well-educated and have graduated from college, and it took them, even with a master's degree in something as useful as chemistry or biochemistry or, what was another one? Bioinformatic engineering. These people there should be a 0% unemployment rate for these people. And there's not. I think that my dad doesn't understand how the economy works, how jobs work even though he has one. I think that he hasn't had enough of them, and I think that he hasn't worked for enough companies. My dad has had the same job for 14 years. My dad has made so few career moves that I don't think that he has any right to talk. I think I may have had more jobs than him. Now, I don't know what it was like before he went into the military, but let's see, he worked in the military for like 4 years, and then he's worked for this company, the same department, which was then bought by other companies, where he stayed in the same department, didn't get fired or anything. He was just in the same department, same job for 14 years. And yeah, okay, so maybe he's gotten some more responsibilities, but he's only worked for one place in the past almost 15 years. And then before that, he was in the military. Do you really expect anyone who was in the military around the time of 9/11 to be liberal? To have any sort of liberal values? No! Hell no! But this idea that somehow he's more credible on me than these subjects, even though I've clearly shown, and he even said that I spent too much time developing these arguments, too much time learning, too much time doing this. And I was just absolutely incredulous, this stigmatization of knowledge. And that is actually what I'm going to talk about next time. Oh, and you're going to love it. If you like the video, of course, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, put them down in the comment section. Again, like, comment, subscribe. Watch my other video about me complaining about my father, because the electric sheep are mesmerizing. If for no other reason. All right. Like five more seconds. This is a pretty sheep. Okay, I'm done.